July 22, 2013. The Appalachian Trail in western Maine. A 66-year-old retired nurse named Geraldine Largay stops for a break at a place called the Poplar Ridge Lean-To. She's hiked nearly 1,000 miles to get here. Just 200 more, and she's done. Her trail name is Inchworm because she walks slow. She's never been in a hurry. Her husband is waiting for her at a road crossing 22 miles up the trail with a hot meal and a hotel room. She chats for a few minutes with two other hikers at the shelter, pulls her pack onto her shoulders, and walks north into the trees. A few hours later, she steps off the trail to use the bathroom. When she turns around, the trail is gone. There's just trees, in every direction, all identical. At 11:01 that morning, she pulls out her phone and starts typing a message to her husband. In some trouble, got off trail to go to BR. Now lost. She hits send. Nothing happens. She walks a few feet. Tries again. Nothing. There's no signal out here. Within 48 hours, the Maine Warden Service launches one of the largest search and rescue operations in the state's history. Hundreds of people, helicopters, cadaver dogs. The FBI eventually gets pulled in. They search for 7 straight days, then for months, then for years. They never find her. 2 years later, a forester walking a survey line stumbles onto her tent less than 2 miles from the trail she stepped off. And what he found inside the tent forced the entire field of search and rescue to rewrite its playbook. This is how search and rescue teams actually find lost hikers. The math behind it, the science of how lost people behave, and how the case of Inchworm exposed the one thing that all of it can't account for. A search starts the moment someone is reported overdue. That word matters. Search teams don't wait for missing. Overdue is enough, because in the wilderness, an extra hour can be the difference between finding someone walking and finding them not. But before a single boot hits a trail, the team has work to do. They build a profile. Age, height, medical conditions, what medications they're on, how experienced they are, what they were wearing the last time anyone saw them, what's in their pack, whether they had a map, a GPS, a phone, a satellite beacon, whether they were alone, whether they told anyone where they were going. Every one of these details changes what the search looks like. A 30-year-old experienced backpacker carrying a satellite communicator is a completely different problem from a 70-year-old day hiker in cotton clothes with a half-dead phone. One of them might still be hiking. The other one is probably already in trouble. Then there's one more piece of information the team needs. They call it the IPP, the initial planning point. This is the last place the missing person can be confirmed to have been. Not where they said they were going. Not where someone thinks they saw them at a gas station. The last point on the ground where it can be proven they actually stood. Because everything else they're about to do, every map, every helicopter route, every dog team, every grid pattern, gets drawn outward from that single dot. For Geraldine Largay, the IPP was easy. 2 hikers had spoken with her at the Poplar Ridge Lean-To on the morning of July 22nd. They saw her face. They knew her name. That dot went on the map. But once you have the dot, you have to figure out where someone could have gone from it. And that's where search and rescue stops being a search at all. It becomes something much stranger. Around the IPP, search managers draw a series of circles, not random ones. These are called probability rings, and they're built on decades of data about how far lost people actually travel before they're found. The numbers are weirdly consistent. For a lost hiker in mountainous terrain, 25% of them are found within 1 mile of the IPP. Half are found within 2 miles. 3/4 are found within 5. And 95% are found within 11 miles. 11 miles is the outer wall. Beyond that, you're in the rare cases. Now, you might think a lost person wanders randomly. They don't. Not even close. Lost people follow patterns, and once you know what to look for, those patterns are almost embarrassing in how predictable they are. Search teams have a name for the things that pull a lost person in a particular direction. They're called attractors: trails, streams, roads, power line cuts, ridges with a view, open meadows. If you're lost at the bottom of a hill with a creek running through it, you will almost certainly walk along the creek. If you're standing on a slope with no idea which way is which, you will almost certainly walk uphill before you walk down. Because every human instinct tells you that getting higher means getting a view, and a view means getting unlost. Barriers work the other way. Cliffs, thick brush, steep drainages, swamps, lost people detour around them rather than push through, even when going around adds hours. So the team takes that map of probability rings and lays it on top of a terrain map. They mark the attractors, They mark the barriers. And what comes out the other side is something called a probability density map. It looks almost exactly like a heat map you'd see on the news. Bright patches in some places, dim patches in others. The brightest patches are where the searchers go first. For Largay, that map was drawn within hours. The bright spots were obvious. The trail itself, north and south of the IPP. The streams in the area. The road crossings within a few miles. The ridges where she might have wandered to look for cell signal. And so the teams went, hundreds of people, walking exactly where the math said she should be. They walked it once. They walked it twice. They walked it again with dogs. And after 7 days of doing everything right, they had nothing. Once the map is built, the search becomes a coordinated machine. The first phase is called a hasty search. Small, fast teams hit the brightest spots on the map first. The trails, the stream banks, the shelters, the clearings. They're not looking carefully. They're looking fast. When the hasty search fails, the operation shifts into something slower and more brutal. Grid searching. Searchers line up in a row, sometimes shoulder to shoulder, sometimes spaced 20 feet apart, and they walk through an assigned sector together. Step by step. They're not just looking for a person. They're looking for anything that doesn't belong. A piece of fabric, a footprint, a snapped twig, a bright color where there shouldn't be one. The wrapper from a granola bar. Dog teams work alongside them. Two kinds. Air-scent dogs, which pick up human odor floating on the breeze. And trailing dogs, which follow a specific scent taken from a piece of the missing person's clothing. Helicopters fly overhead with thermal imaging that picks up body heat against the cooler forest floor. In open country, a thermal camera can spot a person from 1,000 feet up. In Largay's case, they did all of it. More than 30 different teams worked her search area. They covered it. They covered it again. They brought in the dogs. They flew the helicopters. They walked the streams. They walked the ridges. They were on the right map. They were in the right rings. They were looking in the right direction. And somewhere in those woods, at least once, a search team walked within 100 yards of her tent and never saw it. When Largay's body was finally found in October 2015, the search and rescue community didn't move on. They studied her case the way air crash investigators study a wreck, piece by piece, hour by hour, looking for the thing that had gone wrong. Because something had gone very, very wrong. To understand what they found, you need to know about a man named Robert Custer. Custer is a researcher who has spent 4 decades building something called the International Search and Rescue Incident Database. It contains the records of more than 180,000 lost person cases from around the world. He's been collecting these incidents one at a time since the 1980s. From that pile of data, Custer identified more than 40 distinct categories of lost people, each one with its own behavioral profile. Hikers behave one way, hunters another. Lost children behave totally differently from lost adults. People with dementia behave differently from everyone. Each category gets its own probability rings, its own attractors, its own statistics. The whole field has a name for what Custer built. They call it lost person behavior. And today, it's the foundation of almost every wilderness search on Earth. Custer's personal success rate using these models is 96%. Largay was in the 4%. What's haunting about her case is that she did almost everything the statistics would have predicted. After she got lost, she walked uphill. That's textbook lost hiker behavior. She did it because she was looking for a cell signal, the same way the data said she would. When the signal never came, she set up camp near a small stream. Also textbook. And once she realized she couldn't find her way back, she stopped moving and waited. That's exactly what every survival manual on the planet tells a lost person to do. Stay put, conserve energy, let the searchers come to you. The problem wasn't her behavior. The problem was geography. When Largay walked uphill looking for signal, she crossed an invisible line into a narrow strip of land owned by the US Navy. The Navy uses the property for a survival training school, and the boundaries of that land sat in a coordination gap between the agencies running the search. The terrain on the other side of that line was thick, second-growth forest. No clear sightlines from above. Her tent was small, it was green, and it was tucked under a canopy of trees that swallowed it whole. From a helicopter at altitude, she was invisible. From the ground, the search teams walking their grids passed within 100 yards of her tent without ever seeing it. There's one last detail in the data, and it's the one that hurts the most. Lost person research has shown over and over that the people who survive the longest are the ones who stay put, who don't panic, who conserve their energy and wait. Largay did all of that. She survived for at least 26 days. Her last journal entry was on August 18th, almost a full month after she got lost. If the search had been given 2 more weeks, if one more team had been routed through the right corner of the right grid. If a single helicopter had banked a few hundred feet to the east, she would still be alive. The case changed things. Probability density maps are now drawn straight across artificial boundaries like military land, no matter who owns what. Aerial sweeps over heavy forest canopy are no longer trusted on their own, because the data showed that in dense cover, a helicopter's probability of spotting a person on the ground can be as low as 10%. Searchers were retrained to stop just looking for movement. They were taught to look for shapes, tents, backpacks, the straight lines and clean angles of human-made objects against the random patterns of a forest, because nothing in nature is rectangular. Geraldine Largay's tent is now a teaching example in search and rescue programs around the world. And for every inchworm who is found alive, there's the rare one who does everything right, follows every rule, stays exactly where she's supposed to stay, and ends up standing 4% away from being seen.